Okay, so there's the front of the car. That's the back of the car. So yeah, I think I got it pretty close to what I wanted. I think I might have slightly overdid it, but I think it looks pretty good. So we ended up with cutting a full coil off, and I would probably recommend doing maybe 3/4 of a coil, because I'm down to about 2 3/4. So we lowered it about 1 3/4 inches, which is slightly more than I would have liked, but I think overall I think it looks really good. Here's what we have here. So what I ended up doing is I did a coil, half a coil, that was about 1/2 inch, and then I did another quarter, that was another 3/8 of an inch, and then that last quarter was about 3/4 of an inch. So it really steps up dramatically the more you cut the spring. So that was my mistake, because I thought it was only going to be another 3/8 or maybe another quarter. I was expecting about 1/4. And I thought that this would have made it about 1 inch. It turns out it was about 1 3/4 inches is how much drop I got on this thing. But I think it actually looks really good. And I took a bunch of measurements around the car here, like down here for example. And this is about 6 1/4 on the side skirt, and actually here it's about maybe just under 6. So it's still about 1/4 inch. So the side skirts look nice and level. And like the front lip here in the front is about 5 1/4. And then of course in the back here, the battery, this is kind of where I didn't want to drop it too much. And I think I'm probably about as low as I ever want to go. We're at about 5 1/4 or so right now. Now we started at about 7, and yeah, about 5 1/4. You see that angle? Maybe 5 3/8. I don't know. Right in that area right there. So that's about the same height as the front lip. It still looks like, I mean, if you go over a speed bump, this battery, this is the lowest part of the battery right here. And if you go over a speed bump or something, you know, the wheel's going to go up too. So it's not really going to be a problem. And this thing's about 24 inches back from the edge of the car. The battery is. So even if you're going up a steep incline or something, you're still going to have plenty of room to deal with it. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Okay, so we're going to continue on with the project here. So the back is stapled at 2 3/4 gap. I lowered it 1 3/4 inches in the back. And it looks really good. I like the clearance. There's actually plenty of room, even underneath the fender. If the tire goes up, there's actually room up here. There's about 3.5 4 inches of suspension travel still. So it looks good. It looks how the way it's supposed to be. And of course the battery's at about 5 1/4. But today what we're going to do is get the front to match the back. And that's basically lowering it about 1/2 inch. That's all. It's about 3 1/4 inches right here. Actually, it's a little bit more on the driver's side for some reason. It's about 3.5 inches on that side for some reason. I think it's because it's slightly lighter. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try to get this to be about 1/2 inch. And I'll probably just take off a 1/4 coil maybe, or 1/2 coil. Try not to overdo it here. But there's plenty of room down below. I mean, there's no reason for it to be jacked up as much as it is. I mean, it's not very much. It's actually just 1/2 inch. It's really not that different than the back, but I would like it to look perfect and everything, and it would just, the stance would look a lot better. And of course it does lower the center of gravity a little bit more, which would help performance, and it would also help efficiency probably because you have a little bit lower front end. As long as you don't hit anything though, that's the key. So there's definitely such a thing as going too low. I don't think this is going to be too low at all. I think this would be, if you look at the gaps here, you know, it's a few inches, or it's a couple inches in the front and back, and it's just abnormally high up here. If you look at other Fiat 500s, they are all lower. So it's not going to be a problem. I mean, the car is designed to be probably about a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch lower in the front than it actually is here on this model, the electric version. You basically just need a 19, 18, 17, 16, and 15 millimeter wrench to do it. So one of the first things you want to do is open the hood, obviously, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to there's like 3 little plastic pins in here. So you want to take those out, just pull the pins out, and then pull the little thing underneath of it. And that's solely just to get access to the bolt here. And then you take the 19 millimeter off, like I just showed you on the other side here. And then you also loosen the 18 that's down below it, which is actually the actual shock tower. Loosen it, but don't take it off. This is what you take off first. The 19, this is the one that actually supports it to the car. So you go ahead and just remove that first. Loosen the 18. And then you come over here and jack the car up. And these are the mounting positions you want to do for the jacking. I mean, the jack points are like right here, you know, kind of where that triangle is at. But the actual good jack location is actually back here. You can actually stick your jack right here, as I did on that side. You can kind of see. You just put this little point right. There's a nice big flat structural piece that you can jack up at, and then you put the jack stands back here at the jack stand point. So that's how you do it. You don't have to worry about jacking it at the jack stand location. There's multiple places you can lift the car at. It's not really a big deal. And then you want to loosen up the 16 millimeter bolt right here. You pull off the hoses right here. There's a sensor and there's a hose. And then basically you just take the 15 millimeter off, 15 millimeter right here, which is a 17 nut on one side and it's a 15 bolt on the other. That's actually these guys right here. Take those out, and then it just pull the thing right out. And then now what we'll do is we'll disassemble the. I'm going to do one side at a time here, but I did loosen both at the top. That's kind of how it looks right now when it's jacked up. But now what we're going to do is this 18's already loosened up, so we don't have to torque it or anything, so it won't be difficult to do since I've already loosened it while it was on the car. So what we'll do now is remove this, and the spring might pop a little because there's probably a little bit of compression on it, but probably not very much. It doesn't look like there's hardly anything on it. So I'll be careful, be extremely careful in this situation here because you want to make sure you don't kill yourself. It's probably not going to be that bad. I've heard that, although I haven't done this car before, I've heard from other people that you don't need a spring compressor. A lot of times you can use a spring compressor to compress it just to safeten it up, but it's in this one it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so I took out that 18 mil. It does pop a little bit. It kicked a little bit. I kind of just put my whole body weight down on this thing. It just it did kind of punch out. It punched it when I took off the 18 nut right here. It kind of shot it maybe about 3 feet out. But that's other than that, it kind of just jerked out a little bit. Wasn't really anything too violent, but it's definitely be safer than sorry. So I was also trying to compress this a little bit with my hand too, as I was just trying to take a little bit of tension off of it. It seemed to work out pretty good. So yeah, we're going to take it off the bottom here. This is what it looks like. So the bump stop is completely removable in this one. So we'll probably, since it's only going to be coming down about a ½ inch, I'm only going to take about a ½ inch off of it. I think I just take off a little bit off the back here. And then as far as the spring, just like with the rears, it flattens out at the end, so it probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference if I cut this off. There's actually a rubber thing on here. I'm going to take that off. This is what our spring looks like. So it is a little bit, it's unlike the back, it's a little bit tapered. So I don't know if you can tell that by looking at it here, the camera angle. But it's a little bit tapered inwards. So it looks like it starts to go back out to flat right about here, about 3/4 of a turn. And then of course it tapers on the other side as well. We're not going to mess with this side. We're going to do the bottom as we did with the back, same thing. I think this is going to be the side will be less affected. You can kind of see from this angle how it's just tapered in a little bit. It's tapered in. I'm thinking probably about a 1/4 turn, and that's it. That's all I'm going to take off, because even if it lowers it a 1/4 inch, I mean, I'm shooting for a 1/2, but I really don't want to overdo it. I mean, 3/4 would be cool too, but it's kind of difficult to dial it in just right, you know. I mean, you got this spring here, and it's like, you know, how do you really, you know, without engineer, without somebody else who's done trial and error, it's kind of difficult to really get the exact, you know, the exact size. It's just totally trial and error. So anyway, hopefully you benefit from this video. I'm going to go ahead and do a 1/4 turn. Looks like, I mean, if I do about a 1/4 or so, would be about here. It looks like that would be maybe, yeah, maybe about a 1/2 inch. But that's uncompressed though. Okay, so got it all done here now. Took off this much right here. It's about a 1/4 coil. We'll use this as a baseline for the next one, so we get it exactly the same. And then I took off this bump stop right here. You can just pull this off, and so I cut off about 5/8 of an inch or so using a hacksaw. And so that should give me the clearance I need. I mean, I hope it works out to be exactly a 1/2 inch, but I'll take anything I get. As long as it's not anything more than 3/4, I'll be happy. Okay, so when I said that you didn't need a spring compressor, I lied. Turns out you actually do, especially with such a gentle mod. Now, if you were to cut the springs down really short, then you wouldn't need it. But just in order to get this thing at an acceptable range, now see, now I could just gently push down and put the nut on pretty easily now. But without that assistance of the spring compressor, it's just not going to work. Maybe if you have somebody helping you out, I still think it would be difficult with a quarter coil. Maybe if you took off a full coil. So anyway, luckily I had a spring compressor. Okay, so I got this side back in. As I mentioned before, this car doesn't appear to have any kind of alignment. So, like, you know, I circled these bolts here with a pen. You can barely see it. It's like a reddish black ink, to make sure that there wouldn't be any adjustment to the alignment necessary. But this car doesn't seem to have any adjustments here anyway, so they only go in one way. So this car seems to have a fixed suspension, both in the front end and in the back. I mean, the only thing I can see here that's adjustable is the toe right down here. You have this down here. You can adjust the toe in and the toe out. That's about it. I don't see anything for the caster. Well, I mean, caster's very rarely adjustable anyway, but the camber, typically that's how you get the, you know, the side kind of out looking thing on the bottom. Looking at it from the back, you know, you see it on a lot of cars, like the sports cars or whatever. The race cars will have like negative camber, and it would look like the wheels are all crooked on the back. You know, the backs would be like, that would be the left side, and the right side would be like that. But yeah, I don't see anything that's really adjustable here. And I think if you had some sort of camber, custom camber plate up here, you might be able to adjust it there, but, you know, not the way it comes stock. I mean, there's only one location it goes in. It centers down, and then that's it, and then there's no camber. A lot of times in this type of suspension, there'll be slack right here that you can adjust it a little bit, and then that way you can kind of change the camber a little bit for adjustment, for alignment purposes, but I don't see it on this car. So, very interesting. So don't bother to take your car in for alignment, I guess, because, you know, you just be giving them money anyway. They're not going to be able to do anything. Except adjust the toe right down there. That's the only thing they'll be able to do. Toe in, toe out. Okay, so I got the right side back on. Always make sure all the bolts are attached correctly and torqued down. So what we have here is, this is 55 foot-pounds. This one's 55. This one's 55. Make sure all the sensors, hoses are back in the brackets. Up here we have the 19 bracket centered in the hole there. Put the tire back on and lower it down, do the final torquing right here, and then that should be it. Okay, so here we are here. It looks pretty good. I think I got it about equal. It might be just a little bit high here on the front, but just ever so slightly. I've been taking many different measurements over the last 3 weeks or so as I've been driving it. It seems to be right about 2 7/8. Sometimes it's 2 3/4, sometimes it's 3, but it averages about 2 7/8 here in the front. Where on the back here, it's pretty rock solid at about 2 3/4. Though sometimes I do notice it will go up a little bit and down a little bit, just depending on however the car was driven. I don't know. I have no idea why it varies like that, but it's funny. I've taken many measurements on both. But it seems to be stable right here, right now. So I would say it's probably within 1/8 of an inch. 2 3/4 in the back gap, and then 2 7/8 here in the front. So I think that's pretty much going to do it. I mean, I think that was a 1/4 coil that we took off. So if you take off maybe slightly more than that, you might be able to get it just a little bit closer to perfect. Maybe have it be slightly lower in the front, but then of course you risk rubbing stuff down here. But this is about factory height for the standard Fiat 500. Now, if you do an R-bar or something like that, I think that rides about a 1/2 inch lower. So you certainly can lower it a little bit more, but this car being a little bit different than that car, and the fact that it has the battery pack down low there, it's probably a little bit of a concern to lower it anything more than this. So what we've basically accomplished with this whole project here is we've basically lowered the suspension back down to normal height. Instead of it being jacked up like all the Fiat electrics are, we've simply lowered it down to normal height. And that's exactly what I wanted to accomplish. I don't want to get it all ridiculously lowered, you know, because this doesn't even look lowered really. I mean, to me it looks how it's supposed to look. There's really, you know, there's plenty of suspension travel in the front and the back. Like I said, we're still at about 2 7/8 or so, and there's more room behind here too, so there's still plenty of suspension travel, still plenty of clearance in the front and the back. So yeah, I think we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. So I hope you found this video useful. Please like and subscribe if you did, and there's definitely more videos to come.